Jack, why are you still covering this game? Why are you still fighting for this game? The chances of this game making a comeback are slim to none. Uh, are you secretly a dev? Are you secretly receiving money? I mean, what's the deal? I don't understand, blah blah blah. These are some of the things that every once in a while I am asked. So, let's address it. Let's address it in this video so we can get it the hell out of the way, because it seems like there are people that just simply don't understand passion. And that's the simplest way of the answer. Now, obviously, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth because with Splitgate 2, it's become a little bit personal with me because for reasons that I will explain, and especially for those of you guys that have kind of been through the motions like I have, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to understand. But even if you don't, by the end of this video, you should be able to understand. And if you don't, well, I got nothing else for you. But so let's get into it. So why in the hell am I still fighting for this game, et cetera, et cetera? Now, first of all, I'm not secretly a dev, and no, I'm not being paid or sponsored. I am simply a person who has a lot of passion for this particular game, and there's a reason specifically for that. Besides the fact that I absolutely love the game and I've played the living shit out of it so far and will continue to do so, which is great that I even have the chance to do so, just like those of us that are still playing this game, because it's costing the devs tens and thousands of dollars per month to keep the servers up, and they've chosen to keep the servers up instead of shutting them down while they prepare for the relaunch over the next 6 to 7 months. So it's great that we still have access to this game, because this game, from a gameplay perspective, is so damn solid, so damn fun to play, that I've been playing it pretty much almost every day since beta, right? Until we to where we are now, right? And for me, growing up the way I have, to where there was no progression system, there were no fancy features, there was no grind factor and stuff like that in the game back in the day. You played because you just enjoyed the game, and that's what gave you dopamine. But obviously things have evolved, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, it goes even deeper than that, right? So I am still covering and fighting for this game because I believe that even though the game is in the state that it is now, I believe that this game has a fighting chance to come back. I really do. Now, is that guaranteed? No, it's not. But I don't see a reason why you can't fight for something that you enjoy and that's something that means a lot to you. So what is it about Splitgate 2 that means so much to me? Well, here it is. Here's where it gets personal, right? And this is obviously what adds to everything. So, because I know some of you guys are curious, so I might as well explain it in this video. So the reason why it's personal to me is because I've played first-person shooters for a long time. I'll be 41 years old in September, and I've been playing first-person shooters since I was 18, and I've been gaming since I'm 7 or 8 years old, and it's always been a part of my life. There's only been a very small portion of my life to where gaming was at its very minimum, but other than that, it's always been a part of my life, right? So I've seen a lot of changes over the years. I've seen where gaming once was in every single aspect, and I see where gaming is now. And to keep this video on the more positive side, instead of going dramatic and all negative and shit, I'm just going to say that we could be doing better. And the first-person shooter genre is definitely no exception. But this game, despite its issues, which, by the way, 90% of the issues with this game, if not more of a percentage than 90, can actually be fixed. Like, all the problems that this game has in terms of the reasons why people put this game down, the ones that have played it, right? The 3 million downloads that we once had, and the concurrent players obviously wasn't 3 million, but when you're talking about 3 million total downloads, well, you're not going to download a game that you're not going to play. So at one point or another, players have played this game. So there are a numerous amount of reasons as to why a player might have put this game down, right? So basically, a lot of those reasons are reasons that can definitely be fixed. And going back to the personal side of things, in terms of where we were and in terms of where we are now, not just, let's just keep it to the first-person shooter genre. It's kind of heartbreaking in a sense, because ultimately, where art, when it came to video games and the development of video games, no matter what genre it was, whether it was single player, multiplayer, or both, or whatever it was, the art itself of the game was once at the forefront. No matter what, you don't compromise that, right? And then obviously over the years, especially when greed comes into play, that has become less and less of a factor. You put in enough time, well, this is kind of where we are today. And I'm pretty sure I don't really have to go in depth, right? Because that would be a whole other rabbit hole, and this commentary would be longer than it has to be. But ultimately, though, this game, just like games back in the day, or should I say games, I'd say maybe 7 or 8 years ago, give or take, this game does not hold you by the hand. But from a gameplay standpoint, it is very fun. When you add in the portals, it has its own uniqueness to it. And basically, to me, that's something that is in particular in terms of how this game doesn't hold you by the hand, whether it's because the aim assist isn't as strong in this game as it is in other games, especially nowadays, or whether it's because of the fact that there's no manipulating in real-time algorithm with this game, you know what I mean? And that's why it's important to me, because it is, much, much closer to, the time when first-person shooters were awesome, in terms of every single game you'd get, right? And art was first, right? And your success came second, but the art and building something truly great was the number one priority. And obviously now it's not anymore. Especially when you consider certain franchises, and other franchises have followed suit because they all want a piece of that cheddar, right? So with this game, again, it's got a fighting chance to come back, and the developers themselves, are putting themselves in a position to where they've decided to relaunch. They could have made one of two decisions. They could have either given up, which on one hand would make sense when you look at the numbers, when you put everything into it, right? Because I thought about it way too much myself, and it's driven me crazy, no doubt about it, in terms of trying to figure out solutions, ideas, et cetera, et cetera. But another thing is that they decided not to, and they've shifted to put themselves in the best position possible. They put the game back in beta, or should I say, we're just, in beta, and they're going to be working on a relaunch. So, which is said to be anywhere from 6 to 7 months from now, at least. And it's great that the servers are still up and we can still grind the game, which is awesome, even though it's costing, the devs or whatnot, tens and thousands of dollars every month. So that's great that we get to play it. And, it is a sign that the devs also care, as far as that aspect is concerned, because there's no publisher that's breathing down their neck or whatnot. They're fully in charge. And $100 million isn't really that much money when you come to think of it. I mean, sure, like when you're thinking about it as an overall standpoint, yeah, $100 million is a lot of money. But when you're talking about game development, costs, marketing, and all that kind of stuff, there's not much wiggle room when it comes to that. But they're making the most of it. And the fact of the matter is that 90% of the game's problems and reasons as to why, players that played the game and tried it, put it down, the vast majority of those problems could be fixed, right? So basically at this point, those are pretty much the reasons as to why I'm still fighting for the game. And do I enjoy the game? Yeah. I mean, I've put in a ridiculous amount of hours into this game in a short period of time. It's very hard for me to stop streaming for when I start. There's times where I kind of take a break to talk to my viewers, and just have a chat about the game or whatever else. And then, I'll either make one of two choices. I'll either cut the stream after that, or I'll go back into playing. And then in the last few sessions or whatnot, I've gone back into playing. This recent session, I just shut it down. Got to record. And do a couple of other things. But the thing is this game represents a piece of the past to me, and I know that that's not the most popular thing, especially in this day and age, right? To where you have very specific types of shooters with bells and whistles and features and certain things that this game doesn't have yet, as well as the fact that, a lot of games these days, I mean, sure, there are a lot of games that are definitely very technical and definitely require a lot of skill. Not as much as they once used to have in terms of most franchises, but there are a few franchises that definitely do. But with that being said, when you're looking at the law of averages, when you're looking at everything, this game really does represent a really, to me at least, a piece of the past. And I want this game to have a place in modern gaming. You know what I mean? And it may appeal to a smaller audience, but if the cards are played right, there's a chance that this game could potentially appeal to an even broader audience. Now, with that being said, am I suggesting that this game is going to be, at Warzone levels when Warzone first came out, or, Apex Legends levels or Fortnite levels? No, I'm not suggesting that. I mean, that'd be nice, but I'm not suggesting that. All I'm saying is that the game has a fighting chance to have its own relevant place in the first-person shooter genre in the year 2025 and 2026 and beyond. And that's ultimately what people who love this game want. They want the game to not only survive, but we don't want a repeat of Splitgate 1 to where, the servers are maintaining to be up for like a few hundred people and then that's it, right? No, we want things to be able to not just break even for the game to pay for itself and for the servers to remain up, but also to continue to have over the years developer support, so that way the game ends up reaching that level of potential that the developers are envisioning, right? But at the same time, the challenge is that you have to remain true to your core and not have an identity crisis. And the thing is, some people are already mentioning that this game has an identity crisis because there's a little bit of that Titanfall 2 DNA in there. There's a little bit of that Halo DNA in there. And there's a little bit of that Black Ops 3 DNA in there. And then you got Portals thrown into the mix, et cetera, right? But with that being said, I also think when you look at it from the other side, it's like, well, this game is unique because of that, because it actually implements those things very well. It actually does feel like devs from Titanfall and devs from Splitgate 1 and devs from maybe even from Call of Duty and devs from, these game Black Ops 3, for instance, like got together and said, hey, we're going to do a hybrid project, right? And from a gameplay perspective, this is pretty much what it is in certain aspects. So I, for one, appreciate that. And as long as this game continues to have a fighting chance, I'll be there along with it. Now, when you look at the past of X Defiant, obviously when that game announced its sunset, right? I'd say within a month or so after that, I stopped playing it. And reason being was because I knew and I understood that there was nowhere to go. The devs' hands were tied. Mark Rubin's hands were tied. It was over. There was no sense of beating a dead horse. So, as much as that sucked and as heartbreaking as it was time to move on. And I accepted that. I understood that. And I don't want that to happen with this game. Granted, the situation is a little bit different with this game than it was with X Defiant, but the possible destination might be the same. So we want to do everything that we possibly can in order to help prevent that, because we have overall a good, solid game at its foundation that deserves its place in modern gaming in 2025. Even if it's not as popular as those other games, let it be popular enough to where it can exist and it can continue to move forward. So with that being said, guys, I hope I painted a clearer picture as far as this commentary is concerned. And with that being said, I want to know overall how you guys feel, about this game. I know that the comment section is probably going to be mixed with all sorts of mixed feelings and opinions. But with that being said, the game is a form of art, and the foundation is there, and I feel that it deserves a place for sure. So with that being said, I really want to know what you guys think. And as always, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.